Guys, I think I found the reason why so many people love to hate Blake Lively and why she's always taken so wrong by people in the online space. And this all came about when I was checking out her chart. I just happened to pull up her chart while I was looking at some examples for Eris. Originally, I was going to record a video on Eris. And when I saw her placement in her natal chart, I thought we have to talk about this because I just figured out why people love to hate Blake Lively. Other than the fact that she's beautiful, she's rich, she's, married to Ryan Reynolds. A lot of people like Ryan Reynolds. Yes, has she done some questionable things? Sure. You can't argue to me that you haven't in your life. No one is perfect. So I feel like the internet just loves to tear her down and loves, I've been even seeing videos that are saying what the fall of Blake Lively can teach us. I don't know, that the internet hates women. The internet hates successful women. The internet hates women that don't fit into a neat box. Like, I don't know, maybe that's what it teaches us more than anything. However, I wanted to look at Eris for her in the ninth house. This is so significant. And I think I nailed it on why so many people just love to hate her. When we look at Eris, I mean, if I'm a big pop culture person. I'm going to be honest, Blake's never been my jam. I've never really followed her much. She, to me, seems super vanilla. That's her brand, though. There's nothing wrong with that. That's her brand. And she's built out a very successful brand that way. And when I was looking at everything that's gone down with her and the Justin Baldoni and it ends with us drama, it's just been really interesting. And looking at past interviews with her to see how people take her really wrong. And I don't necessarily think she is as intentionally rude as she might come across. I believe it's Eris that's giving off this energy for her. Like, I believe this is exactly what is coming across for her. Now, Eris, if we look at Eris, this is an aspect of the feminine that's often been buried and burned and written out of history. It's a very raw, fierce, unapologetic energy, Eris. So not only do we have Eris that's already raw and unapologetic, we have a ninth house Aries for Blake. And this energy is, almost like a higher octave of Lilith. Not that Lilith is lower. I'm not talking about lower energy, but a higher octave in the sense of almost like a big sister energy. Like she's just bigger presence, right? She's an activist, crusader for truth. She's a renegade and a revolutionary when we look at Eris. And she's the empowered voice that speaks up for injustice. And so when we look at the connection of Eris to more of the dark feminine mysteries and the cosmic womb of creation, it's the mystic, the witch, high priestess, and the shaman. This is also when we look at Eris, she's the doula that assists in the destruction and creation of, death, rebirth cycles ultimately, and helps guide the journey from womb to tomb. So it's a very Eris is a warrior energy. Strong Eris points in a natal chart that, especially for women, let's be honest, especially for women, can come across as like she's such a bitch. God, she's rude. Right. And that's the energy a lot of people get from Blake. And I don't think it's because she's actually like that. I think she's strong. I think she's independent. And I think she says what she wants to say. And sometimes it's taken wrong. I also think, if I'm being honest, sometimes she tries to pick up her husband's humor and it just doesn't suit her. And I think sometimes that is also why people get the wrong impression. However, when we're looking at Eris in ninth house, it's strong opinions. Like very strong opinions and not afraid to voice them. So if someone, for example, says something to her in an interview and she takes it like as off-putting or inappropriate, she's not going to be afraid to give off that energy or to, I saw an interview of her that was making the rounds and someone asked her a really vague question and she just looks at them. She goes, what is that even supposed to mean? Right. But that's that Eris energy in ninth house Aries. Like that's that energy of like, what is that even supposed to mean? I'm just going to voice the opinion I have about this. And I'm just going to say it like it is. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Neither of us have time or energy for that. And yet she was being dragged in that interview for just saying like, what is that even supposed to mean? When if you get thrown a vague question, that's the same thing I say. When my clients ask me vague questions, I'm like, vague questions get bad answers. Bad questions get bad answers. And she was getting thrown bad questions and she just called it for what it is. Now, When we're looking at Eris in ninth house, it can kind of come with two ways. Like it can either be a very fortunate position for Eris, where the opinions of that being, so Blake, are more debated rather than seen as negative. But also, it can have that other approach, right? Where that person's just seen as bad and negative and horrible. And I think a big piece of that and why her Eris is being seen in that respect right now is because we have a very like eat the rich, take down celebrities mentality. Not everyone, of course, like everyone loves Keanu Reeves, but we do have that mentality right now where people just want to like find fault in celebrities and hate celebrities. So I believe no matter what she was like, her energy would be taken wrong right now, to be quite honest. When we're looking at now, this is significant as well. Eris in Blake Lively's natal chart is retrograde. Why is this significant? This is going to be someone that's a little bit more aware of that aspect of self, like a little bit more self aware about how they're being taken, and also aware of mm, like their own self sabotage patterns, if you will, and where they're filtering their voice. So, with a retrograde Eris, you're going to see someone that's like intentionally trying to discard self sabotage patterns. They're working through low self esteem. And see, this is something I think is big and significant with Blake as well, because when we look at Blake, I really do believe, especially in her legal filing, that she's very negatively impacted by everything that's happened. I believe she's negatively impacted by bullies or people that are being critics or being rude online. And when we're looking at Eris retrograde, that fits the bill. Eris retrograde is going to be someone that kind of turns those critics into their own inner voice. And so they're constantly in this like trying to work on that low self-esteem. And I think that also is why sometimes she comes off as off, is she is working through maybe potentially self-esteem issues and that inner critic and trying to overcome that. And sometimes when someone's trying to overcome their own shadows, people can't wait to tear them down. People can't wait to tear someone down that they think is, needs to be taken down a peg. And that's a problem with the collective, not one individual person. This retrograde position as well is going to be someone that is naturally more inclined to stand up for themselves. And she is going to often, with this position, desire to seek retribution for people close to her that have been wronged. Now, this is especially true for women with this placement, or when those that are deeply connected to feminine energy. However, the flip side of this in this placement is she's also likely to receive pushback and retaliation, even if she was the wronged one. So it's this double-edged sword of like you are naturally designed, and she's naturally designed and inclined to stand up for herself and to like seek justice for herself and those she loves, but she's also likely to seek or to have others seek retribution on her for her perceived wrongs against them. Well, does that not encapsulate this whole Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, It Ends With Us drama? It is exactly, the astrology is pointing exactly to what's happening right now. With that really strong energy, people are likely to seek retribution on her. And usually for her standing up for herself. And that retaliatory aspect of the lawsuit is the thing that she's pushing to the forefront. And I'm seeing that in her Eris of like, you retaliated on me for me standing up for myself. I'm allowed to stand up for myself. I'm allowed to have a voice. I'm allowed to use my voice free from retaliation. I mean, that's not just any woman's right. It's legally, you're not allowed to retaliate against someone for speaking up for their rights like that in the workplace either. So when we see this receive retaliation, she's also likely to, come back and fight for herself and fight for those that she believes have been wronged by the person. Another thing that we look at with Eris here is a big message. This person ends up having a big message or impact or meeting challenges around human rights. That like this is exactly what this lawsuit is. And so this is going to be around human rights for those that have been oppressed or those that have been wronged. And so, it might, and some people might think like it's just a movie. Like, why didn't she just leave? That's not how it works, first of all. And second, why should she have to leave? Why should she have to quit her job and leave the workplace because of how other people are treating her? That makes no sense. And whenever I hear that, it actually makes me lose faith in humanity, to be quite honest, when I hear people and see people say that online. as if the woman, it's her problem that people are treating her like shit and she should just leave her job. So this is someone that wants to stand up for human rights. And for her, it might seem trivial to some people, maybe, but this is her way to stand up for women's rights. And maybe there is an aspect. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that every celebrity that makes it to that level in Hollywood has a PR team that is taking charge of the narrative. And both things can be true. All things can be true at once. That maybe there are some aspects to her that she comes across wrong. Sure. Maybe she's even been rude in her past. I am imagining you have been rude in your past at some point in time. No one is without fault. And she could also have been wronged on the set. And she could be using this lawsuit to not just seek truth and justice for herself, but also to help improve the workplace for others. Can all be true at once. So when we're looking at Eris in this position, it's truth, cultural disruption. This position for Eris is usually someone that's caused some kind of cultural disruption, has created new beginnings, and it's almost like this initiation energy, this spring-like energy, like this newness that she's bringing after seeing oppression, after seeing someone wronged or herself wronged. This is also someone that's not afraid to fight. Like the traditional way we look at it is like, they'll if their land's being taken away, they'll fight for their land. But the idea is she will fight for what's hers. And that can be taken very wrong, especially for women online, right? It can be taken very wrong. I believe this placement, especially, I'm going to mention one more thing. When we look at Eris, it's in opposition to Psyche. Why is that Psyche? Or why is that important? Why is that significant? Why is that Psyche? Psyche is the goddess of the soul and is associated with, well, psychology and the unconscious mind, making the unconscious conscious. What I see for that interaction in her chart is someone that really is going to face challenges and tests within her life around loyalty, around her ego. I do believe there's an ego aspect to this. No one wants to lose the PR wars, especially when you're a power player like Blake and Ryan. So I do believe there is an ego aspect to this, but they're going to find and meet challenges around love, loyalty, commitment, ego, and trust. And so I do believe that this is like, what do you believe in, Blake? What do you believe in? Back it up with your full ass. Back it up. Show up for it. And so Psyche is kind of bringing that different aspect to her energy of facing challenges. And opposition is not like a good energy. Yeah. An opposition is like tug of war. Not a fun tug of war. It's a tough energy to be in. So when we're looking at this from the perspective of Psyche opposed Eris, what we're seeing is someone that's not afraid to stand up for herself and someone that's going to be put in positions where she's forced to stand up for herself. All right. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight around Blake Lively. If you enjoy all things astrology, even self-development from the lens of astrology and human design and gene keys and pop culture, make sure to hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.